I think it's safe to say that the Keyblade is one of the most popular video game weapons of all time. It's truly up there with iconic weapons like the Blades of Chaos, the Halo Energy Sword, and the Master Sword. But video games have a lot of weapon customization, especially nowadays. God of War has the Leviathan Axe, Final Fantasy VII has the Nail Bat, and Saint Trow has... Wait, can I show that? But even in Kingdom Hearts, there are iconic Keyblades outside of the classic Kingdom Key. Way to Dawn, No Name, all the different versions of the Ultimate Weapon, hell, even the Keyblade itself is popular despite we never get to use it in gameplay. With the plethora of amazing Keyblades, however, a bunch of really unique ones get swept under the rug. Because of this, a bunch of Keyblades that require the player to go out of their way don't get a whole lot of attention, especially if their stats lack in comparison to the blades that you would normally have just playing through the story at the time that you can get them. For instance, Birth by Sleep has one themed entirely off of Rumble Racing, the Mario Kart-esque racer called Victory Line, and there's a ton more, not including just some fun facts about these Keyblades and how you acquire them that a lot of new fans won't know or old fans may have forgotten. So let's take a look today at just that, the most forgotten Keyblades in Kingdom Hearts. Hopefully you guys learned a cool thing or two, because even I forgot about a few of these, and yeah, well, I'm obsessed. As usual with these things, we're going to tackle this in release order, so welcome back to our old friend Kingdom Hearts 1. Now, the numbered titles are the most popular of the series, so likely a lot of these you have at least heard of. For instance, Crab Claw, the Atlantica Keyblade, is one we likely all got on our first playthrough. However, if you're like me, you went to Halloween Town first, granting you the Pumpkinhead Keyblade, which outclasses the former in strength, making at least for strength builds the first new Keyblade that never gets equipped. But backtracking a little in the story, there's also Wishing Star, which is one of the first new Keyblades that you have to go out of your way for. Unlike most Keyblades, Wishing Star is not granted upon the completion of a world, but instead, once Monstro is cleared, you have to make your way back to Traverse Town, where you learn Geppetto and Pinocchio have found a new home. It's here that you can find Wishing Star in a green chest in the corner of the room, granting you a Keyblade that, although looks lacking in strength, has a unique property allowing guaranteed critical hits. But forget about the Keyblades that you don't know. How about something you forgot about the Keyblades that you do know? Everyone knows Diamond Dust and One Wing Angel, the respective Keyblades of the Ice Titan and Sephiroth super bosses. However, I bet you didn't know that these Keyblades, yeah, they didn't exist. It wasn't until the final mix release of the game that these Keyblades were added as rewards. Before that, it was just an Ansem report for Sephiroth and the chilling cold truth that there was no further challenge to conquer. And speaking of Final Mix Keyblade changes, in the OG version of Kingdom Hearts 1, both Metal Chocobo and Oblivion were stronger than their world's counterparts, Olympia and Divine Rose. However, this was flipped in the Final Mix release for an unknown reason. Never forgive them for massacring my boy Oblivion. Last but not least, there's also Spellbinder, one of the more uniquely acquired Keyblades. This requires you to learn the first tier of every spell in the game, after which you would talk to Merlin and hey, he would grant you this Keyblade. Once again though, if you're like me, in true caveman style, I don't care about no dang spell, just let me whack him. Now, Chain of Memories and its remake are obviously unique in that Sora never changes his Keyblade the entire game. The mechanic is instead replaced by attack cards themed off of every Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts 1 with a few extras. Now, the remake has a few unique details that we'll get into, but first, for both versions of the game, did you know that you actually can get the Ultimate Weapon? Once you've completed Reverse Rebirth, the Riku story, and as long as your save is past the first Marluxia fight, you can return to a calm bounty in Sora's story in Castle Oblivion to retrieve an Ultimate Weapon card that can be replicated through the Moogle shops and or more calm bounty farming. However, much like KH1, there have been multiple releases of this game, and therefore multiple changes along the way. If you boot up Recom now as a part of the 1.5 Remix collection, there's treasure rooms that you can obtain special Keyblade cards from 358 Days Over 2. But yeah, just like Kingdom Hearts 1, these didn't exist. You see, originally Chain of Memories was a remake of the GBA version that released as a combo with Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix in Japan in March of 2007. So the remake of Recom didn't release until after that of KH2 Final Mix. So with that, they also included these special Keyblade rewards. However, instead of being themed off of days, which didn't exist at the time until 2009, they instead were themed off of the many KH2 Keyblades. Specifically, Monochrome, Hidden Dragon, Fall of the Wind, and Photon Debugger were exclusively on the original PS2 version of Recom as KH2 Keyblade rewards, while Starseeker and Bond of Flame were carried over to 1.5 but relisted as Days rewards. This was likely due to keep the theme of 1.5 together, as that was all games taking place from KH1 to before KH2, as well as possibly not to spoil for any potential newcomers, which the 0.5 remakes did have a lot of. It may seem weird that Starseeker and Bond of Flame are even renamed since they are originally KH2 Keyblades, yes. However, in mission mode for Days, where you can play as both Mickey and Sora, equipping the Pandora's gear will give Starseeker to Mickey and Bond of Flame to Sora. It's like a little loophole. But speaking of days, let's change up the order a little bit and keep that flow going, because honestly a lot of weapons in Days need a little more attention. Look, I will stand by this. Days has some of, if not the best Keyblade designs in the entire series, and unfortunately due to the less popularity of the game, as well as not having proper remakes to experience them, they get overshadowed, kind of making all of the Keyblades forgotten. I mean, we have Leviathan, Omega Weapon, Total Eclipse, Maverick Flare, Abaddon Plasma, and quite literally so many more. Not to mention the joke weapons, which have hilarious reskins of character weapons like Zigbar's hair dryers, Syax with his banana, Lexaeus with his squeaky hammer, Axel's Domino's pizza, and Roxas quite fittingly getting the stick. Wait, what do you mean Roxas doesn't get the stick? What does he get, something stupid like an umbrella? Are you f***ing kidding me? No, like dead serious. Square, what were you thinking? I mean, sure, give Shion the umbrella, but you literally already wrote the best joke weapon for Roxas in the damn game. Anyway, yeah, put some respect on Days weapons. Got carried away there. Kingdom Hearts 2. Okay, so not gonna lie, this one is a hard one. I mean, of all the KH games, I think the one most familiar to fans is hands down Kingdom Hearts 2. So there's a bunch of Keyblades like Monochrome or Hidden Dragon that are definitely lackluster, but I still feel like everybody knows about them. There's also the Final Mix Keyblades added to the Final Mix version, being 2 Become 1 and Winter's Proof, but with the popularity of the 0.5 remixes, even these I feel are pretty well known in the series. However, let's keep that Final Mix difference in mind, because there's actually is Keyblade differences from OG to Final Mix. We all know KH2 introduced Keyblades to having abilities, but there are 2 and only 2 Keyblades that changed from OG to Final Mix. Do you know what 2 Keyblades those are? Go ahead and comment down below for a chance to win a free cookie. Kingdom Key and of course Sweet Memories, the 100 Acre Wood Keyblade, were for some reason changed out of all the others in the Final Mix version. Kingdom Key originally has Defender, which increases your defense when your HP hits critical status, while in Final Mix was changed to Damage Control, which causes the user to take half the usual damage when HP is in critical status. Yeah, cause those are different. But Sweet Memories has changed from Lucky Lucky of all abilities to a measly Drive Converter. Now, honestly, I see this as a huge downgrade. I mean, I remember as a little 9-year-old using Sweet Memories to grind for the ultimate weapon. It gave the Keyblade a purpose that it obviously wouldn't have otherwise due to it being the worst Keyblade stat-wise. You could technically argue that they balanced this out because in Critical Mode, which was also added in Final Mix, you would get that Lucky Lucky back as a default ability, but I mean, still, if you were playing anything lower, you were SOL. And it's not like Critical Mode is easy, especially to justify an extra Lucky Lucky. So, on to the most underrated side game. Birth by Sleep has a lot more to talk about, especially when talking about specifically Terra. Like, did you guys even remember there is a whole Keyblade themed off of the Mario Kart minigame in Disney Town? Ironically, it's the best Keyblade at this point in the game if you go to Disney Town first, having +4 in strength and +2 in magic. However, you have to clear the Rumble Racing minigame, specifically winning on the last course, the Castle Circuit. Being such a change up from the gameplay and most people wanting to get back into the action, I know a lot of people, myself included, skipped completely over this, not even realizing a Keyblade was a reward until eventually going for the Platinum Trophy. In fact, looking this up, it's not even required for the Platinum Trophy. You can do the entire reports as every character and not have to touch the Rumble Racing minigame as part of Disney Town. You do have to do it as part of the Mirage Arena. I literally had to grind Rumble Racing just for this video to get the footage for the Keyblade. If that's not worth a like and sub, I don't know what is. But switching up to specifically Terra, he's the only one to have a unique Keyblade obtained from the Mirage Arena. Of course, Ultima and Royal Radiance can be obtained by everyone, but Darkgnaw, how do you pronounce this? Sorry, ADHD, got sidetracked. But Darkgnaw is only obtained by Terra, specifically in the 5th battle of the Mirage Arena, Dead Ringer. However, at least in my experience, I'm always in the latter half of the game before I'm even properly leveled for this fight. So usually I'm already around Neverland, which means that I already have the Mark of a Hero or Hyperdrive, and while you could grind for Darkgnaw early on, you wouldn't get much use before getting Terra's undeniably better Keyblades, End of the Earth and Chaos Ripper, so I just never get a chance to use it regardless of how cool it is. Side note though, this did eventually return in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross with a level up design. Kind of bittersweet though, since that game is also now in the void. But speaking of sweet, did you also know that there's an ice cream Keyblade? That's right, if you make all 8 ice cream flavors, you are rewarded with the sweet stack for each playable character. Another Keyblade I feel never gets acquired unless going for the 100% completion, and even then, once again, it's not even remotely comparable to any Keyblade you would already have at this point. Although I will note it is pretty cool how each character has a different amount of ice cream scoops to determine the length of the Keyblade. That was something really unique that they did with the BBS, is changing the size of the Keyblades that are shared to fit the character more. Last but not least though, I did want to shout out Bright Crest. I don't necessarily consider this forgotten, but it's a Keyblade only for Aqua and only in the final episode portion, so it being such a cool design, especially for Aqua, it sucks it only exists here outside of the main file most people have for Aqua. Oh, before we move on, cool fact, Kingdom Key D, Mickey's recolored variant of the Kingdom Key, was originally planned to be a usable Keyblade for Ventus in the game, but scrapped before release. It can be found in the game files, and I believe a mod exists to use it now. So all of the Keyblades for Recoded except one are rehashes of Kingdom Hearts 1, since the game itself is a KH1 rehash. But because of how you acquire some of them, I bet a lot of you don't even know really how many Keyblades are actually returning. For instance, Metal Chocobo returns as a Keyblade, which of course doesn't sound too shocking, but to get this Keyblade, you have to fight through the 30-layered labyrinth in Olympus Coliseum. Just for clarity, because I do know this game isn't as widespread in the community, Olympus in Recoded was a vastly different take than other games. It was strictly turn-based, and you had to fight through layers before fighting a boss to complete the labyrinth. However, the first time you play Olympus in the story, there's only 5 layers ending in a fight with Cerberus and Hades. To progress further, you need to replay the episode, mind you later on at a higher level, obviously to be more prepared. This time you have a total of 15 layers ending in a Rock Titan fight. But wait, there's more, because then you have to replay again through 30 levels before featuring a Behemoth and Ice Titan boss fight. It's here though, on specifically level 27, you can find Metal Chocobo in a prize block, not even a boss reward, just a random block. So if you're just bomb rushing the last levels not paying much attention, you could completely miss out on this and have to redo all 30 levels. Honestly, what were they thinking? That's really the most intense of them though. Oathkeeper is also available from the Score Attack mode in Castle Oblivion, and Lionheart as well as Ultimate Weapon are both available from System Sector rewards in late game Traverse Town and Hollow Bastion respectively. Mild grinds compared to Metal Chocobo, but let me know in the comments, did you play Recoded, and did you know about or even acquire these said Keyblades? So, Dream Drop Distance is up next, and this one is also not shy of the unbearable grind fest for Keyblades. To start off mild, the Unbound Keyblade requires you to complete all the secret portals in the game, all of which being just harder in-game level versions of the bosses that you fought in that world, for instance Hoko Monkey and Spelican. While that is a grind, I do feel a lot of players have taken up this task, and therefore this Keyblade is a little more known than the others, but similar to Sweet Stack, there's a whole minigame in here that features its own Keyblade upon completion. Sweet Dreams, a Dream Eater themed Keyblade, can be obtained after completing all Flick Rush cups in Traverse Town. And yeah, Flick Rush is... actually not that bad. This shit could be fun for a bit. Also, I don't know if anyone else had this happen, but in my playthrough on the HD version, I was only able to get the Keyblade with the character I completed the Flick Rush with. However, I know for a fact this Keyblade is for both Sora and Riku because I had it on my 3DS file, so glitch maybe? Or maybe I just did it wrong, I'm not sure. But lastly, for the Keyblade, I actually think a lot of people do know, however the task being so tedious it gets skipped over and then forgotten later on. End of Pain, quite possibly one of the coolest designs for a Keyblade, is acquired by completing all of these special portals. So, unlike the secret portals with Unbound where it was in a fixed location with one boss no matter what, the special portals functioned very differently. You basically have to check the forecast on every world to see if it has a Dream Eater status screen. You then have to search around the world for this portal, which is randomly changed every time you drop from Sora and Riku. These portals have a mob fight, and there's no guarantee that you'll get a portal that you haven't already completed. Oh, but I'm sure it's not that bad, right? I mean, what is there, 2, 3 portals? No. There's 6. In every world. Well, other than the world that never was. That does have 3. So yeah, in my opinion, the biggest grind on this list. I never even had this Keyblade on the 3DS version, only when I finally went to grind the plat for the HD version that I finally acquired this. And yeah, it is really cool, like I said, so a bit worth it, but to each their own. 0.2 Birth by Sleep.
There is only one.
Coming up on the end here, but Kingdom Hearts 3, another number title, so yeah, most of these are known. There is the Classic Tone Keyblade that you get from completing the Classic Tone minigames, and the Chef's Tone that you get from completing Remy's Cookbook, but that's only really grinding ones in the game, and I do feel a lot of players have gotten these. However, let's not forget, because I know some of us have, that KH3 had DLC Keyblades, and some of them were console exclusive. Midnight Blue and Phantom Green, two Starseeker reskins for the PlayStation and Xbox pre-orders of the game, were later released as DLC alongside Dawn Till Dusk, the Amazon pre-order. But even more than that, there is also Advent Red, Elemental Encoder, and Dead of Night, three more reskins of Mickey's Star Cluster Keyblade for the Nintendo Switch, Epic Games PC port, as well as the Steam release of the PC version. These are very interesting because yes, to this day you can buy the PlayStation or Xbox versions as well as the Dawn Till Dusk, at least on the console version, but that you don't have any access to the other Keyblades other than getting their respective port, meaning that absolutely you likely went without at least one of these Keyblades unless you bought every version of Kingdom Hearts 3. And let's be honest, who is playing the cloud port of Kingdom Hearts 3 on the Switch in 2025?
What happened? What happened?
But also one really cool fact about a Keyblade in the base game, you could actually get Starlight from launch instead of after the Keyblade graveyard like you normally do. With the launch of KH3 incoming, KH Union Cross released 5 of the classic minigames on the app that you could then grind to a certain goal in each one. Once the goal was met for each minigame, you would then be taken to a special download code for whatever console you specified to be playing KH3 on. Said download code would give you the Starlight at launch in early game. And yeah, your boy actually did this. I remember spending all of my free time at work in 2018 just grinding these minigames because at the time, at least for myself, I had no clue whether this Keyblade would still be available without this code, and being the KH mega nerd I am, I wanted to make sure I secured this. But speaking of Union Cross, we can actually discuss this game for this video. Usually I omit this because of the special nature of the game as a whole being so different from gameplay and being completely erased from history on the App Store as we know it. However, Union Cross had a bunch of really cool Keyblades returned from previous games that would then get a cool pre and post level up version to fit the Keyblade leveling mechanic of the game. We have a bunch of really cool returns like Fenrir, Sleeping Lion, and Darkgnaw that we discussed earlier from Birth by Sleep. However, Union Cross also had a total of 4 completely unique to the app Keyblades. There's the obvious Starlight that I think we all know, but there's also Moogle O'Glory, a complete Moogle themed Keyblade that you could obtain from a weekend daily event. As well as Bad Guy Breaker, a Wreck-It Ralph themed Keyblade, since Game Central Station was only used in Union Cross as of this video at least. Seriously, I do hope we get the return of this world someday in the future. But lastly, there was also Missing Egg, a Keyblade that you could get through the Proud mode that actually featured as Ventus's original Keyblade before he got Wayward Wind. Yeah, honestly, what's the story behind that? I mean, Ventus is the only character we have seen get a complete Keyblade change to his base Keyblade for no apparent reason. It makes me wonder if with his connection to Infant Sora at the beginning of Birth by Sleep somehow altered his Keyblade. I mean, it would make sense, Ventus means wind and Sora means sky. Maybe there's some kind of lore behind the fusing of people's hearts and how that affects their Keyblade appearance. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. I'll go ahead and shout out the pre-Master Defender used in Dark Road, but there's no Keyblade change in that game, similar to 0.2 BBS. Kind of ironic that Master Defender was the same for both KH games that you can't change the Keyblade though. Anyways, I do hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, please do remember to hit that like and sub to help support the channel growth absolutely free. Aiming for 5k subs in 2025, but if that happens, we shall see. As well as don't forget to follow me on all other social medias like Twitch and Twitter. Both of those links will be down in the description below. Thank you guys for turning out, and as usual, I will see you in Quadratum, fellow masters.